morning, and welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam with a very runny nose for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Which is information I don't think anyone out there really needed to know, but if you hear a lot of pauses, that's why, because I have to, pause to blow my nose, so that's not disgustingly on the audio. Good morning. Bit of housekeeping before we get too deep into today's topic, being Moon Knight Episode 4. If you like the show, if you like what we do here, hit the subscribe button, because, we do a lot. There's a lot of things that are covered here on this show, be it new release movies, like tonight I'm going to see Northman, tomorrow I'm going to see The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. Sometimes we do video games, sometimes we do, a lot of times we do TV, The Girl from Plainville, we do The Dropout, Moon Knight, coming soon, Miss Marvel, Kenobi, episode recaps. So if you hit subscribe, the episodes will, go right to your phone so you know when we have a new episode out, and then you don't have to worry about having to search us out or anything like that. If you like the analysis is pretty consistent across the board. Also, if you can give us 5 stars in the review, that would be very helpful, because if you want to get onto Rotten Tomatoes as a podcast, you have to have a 4-star rating, but with 500 reviews. So if you could do that, that would be very helpful to us on Apple Podcasts. So it takes like 2 seconds. So Moon Knight Episode 4. Now I did really like the ending. I also like that they're not going to drag out the whole does Layla know, or when does Layla find out about Steven killing, her father? I don't think it was Steven, like the way he talks about it. I don't think it was Steven. I think that body killed her father, but I don't think it was Steven or Mark. I think the body is, I think it was, the third personality that's definitely in there, but I don't think he's being introduced till, next episode, the episode after, if we get it at all, with Jake Lockley. I think that's going to be the personality that did actually kill her father, because I think that, I think the way that Mark's been portrayed, he's kind of a pragmatist. Mark is not someone who kills, indiscriminately. It's not like he's there we're going to kill people just for the sake of killing people. It's, if someone needs to be killed, then certainly I'm not against it, but I'm not going to go out of my way to, to kill people needlessly. And I think that's kind of an important distinction to have for his character, is that, he's a killer and he's willing to kill, but he's not going to do it unless necessary. So it's kind of interesting to me. It is that they kind of played that in that way. What else was there in this episode? And I think that it's good that they kind of had it out there on Front Street, and put it out there now, instead of sitting there and being like, when's she gonna find out what happened there? And it's dragging it out until, I guess really all they could drag it out to realistically is episode 5, and moving on from there. But because then they have to reconcile by episode 6, and then be ready to move on and be ready to move on by episode 6. I think putting it there was a good idea. And I think the thing, too, that I liked is that there is complexity to the emotion on this show, where, Layla finds out that Mark, or someone in Mark's body, killed her father, and her response after is not, because it's they were married and all of that. It's not that she's it's not like she's fuck him to death, I want nothing to do with him, and it's like he's dead to me. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of complex emotions going on, especially considering there's more than one person in that body that's vying for screen time. It's this idea that, yeah, he did that, he may have done that. Also, there's also the distinct possibility that Arthur may have been lying. And we know he wasn't, but, she, and the way that he kind of half confesses, I guess is enough. But still, when he gets shot and gets thrown into the water, there's still that look of horror on her face as he's shot. Because at the end of the day, it's, they're still married. And like, look, terrible thing that happened. But there's still an emotional connection between the two characters. And I think that, we've been doing a lot of blowing of Oscar Isaac on this show. Because, look, you can't say Oscar Isaac's not doing a tremendous job over the course of this show with his performance as Mark Spector and as Stephen Grant and all of that. He is doing absolutely wonderful things, from subtle nuance in the character when he switches from one to the other to making them feel distinct and unique and playing off of himself, basically, at times where he's talking to himself. It's not like, Robert Downey Jr., who has, Jarvis. He is talking to himself. And it works. It works within the context of the show, and it works because, he can sell it. He's a great actor. The problem I have, and the thing is, it's like we've been doing that a lot, and it's like Ethan Hawke hasn't really been getting a lot of, time talking about his performance as he's playing this kind of subtle religious zealot, and I love the way he's doing it. And I don't think we've really given enough props to May Callumway, I believe is how you pronounce her name, who plays, who plays Lila, but she's doing a tremendous job as well, and she's doing a lot with very little, because it's not like she has a tremendous role in the show, which I'll maintain is not entirely her fault. Which, look, to say it is her fault is ridiculous, because it 100% comes down to screen time allocated by the writers, but she's not doing a ton with what little she has. So, like, even small things, like, she's got to deal with, reconciling what happened to her father at the hands of her husband, who, by the way, has dissociative identity disorder. And then also she spends most of this episode talking to Steven. And I think this is the first time I've been okay with Steven having most of the screen time in an episode. Because it's so interesting to see him trying to piece together the past that they had with Mark. And it's an interesting way to exposit Mark's relationship with Layla, without making it feel like everything you've ever seen before. And it is so well done and so interesting that they do it that way. And I think that, like, on top of that, when we get to the scene at the end, which is probably my favorite scene of the show so far, in the mental institution, where Mark is in the mental institution, and he's talking to Harrow, who's, a doctor, and, Lila is Lila is another patient, as is the gift shop, manager, and all of these other people. They're all just other characters, and it like all other people who are in this asylum, and it's such an interesting and well done scene, and it gives everyone an avenue to play someone slightly different, and I got Legion vibes, the FX show Legion, which was tremendous. If you haven't watched Legion, go and watch Legion. You can probably get it on Hulu because it was an FX show, but Legion was so good. And it felt like that scene at the end. And then when he pulls, Steven out of the, out of the sarcophagus, and then the two of them are trying to escape, and they run into the, they run into the hippo goddess. It's just so funny, because they're both screaming the exact, like, they're both screaming, but they're both screaming differently because they're two different people, but the two Oscar Isaacs next to each other screaming in horror at this giant hippo is hilarious. And I feel like this is meant to be a symbolic journey, because what we have through most of the show is this kind of rivalry between Mark and Steven, and kind of this uneasy alliance where the two of them don't really like each other, but they don't really have a choice in the matter. They have to work together to not, to get through this alive, where, Khonshu has kind of taken control of Mark's, body, and has given him the power of Moon Knight. I think it's an interesting kind of, take on it, where now they have to work together, Mark and Steve have to work together to get out of this, what's what I'm looking for here, out of this, mental institution, but it isn't really a mental institution, it's really, his head. They have to work together to get out, and then once they get out, they'll be able to move forward. So I think that, with 2 episodes to go, I think you're cutting it close on how much you can do. I think I said this too with Captain America, because episode 4 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier was the one where, what's his name? John Walker murders the guy with the shield, and we get that image of him, with the shield on his arm, with the blood stain on it. And I think I said the same thing there, where I'm like, there's a lot of ground they have to cover in the next 2 episodes, and I feel like we're in kind of the same situation here, where there's a ton of ground that needs to be covered, because at the end of the day, if he's going to get to the end, which the end is going to be, the end of the show is going to be the end of Iron Man. But instead of it being, 2 guys in Iron Man suits, it's going to be the Avatar of Khonshu fighting the Avatar of, the Avatar of, Amit. So because that's where this is inevitably headed, and that's where this is going to end, and there is a certain inevitability to that, because that's what we are rapidly hurtling towards, there does need to be some resolution of the plot leading up to that. Namely, we need to have a point where, they not only have to escape this mental asylum, and I say that as mental asylum in Steven's head, they need to not only escape that, but they also need to liberate Khonshu from the little statue thingy, and then they have to go from there to go and fight Harrow before he can, fuck up the entire world with Amit's, judgment, or Amit's judgment. It's Amit, it's definitely Amit. I see A-M-M-I-T, and for whatever reason my mind goes to pronounce it Amit, and I don't know why, because that's not right. And it's also not how they pronounce it over and over again on the show. So it's not even like there's a good reason for me to make that fuck up. But it is what it is. What else is there to address with this episode? It's very dialogue heavy. And that's one of the things I'm noticing about these shows, is that they do get very dialogue heavy at times. So what else is there with this show? I feel like that's really it. I mean, it's a good episode, don't get me wrong, but it's not, I feel like it's not particularly too much. There's a lot of ground covered in terms of personal development. This feels a lot like Falcon and Winter Soldier episode 5, where, it is questioning what do we do in this situation, or like there was something, or like the Loki finale, where like we have to kind of, get to the point where we can handle the issue at hand. And a lot of the Loki finale is about that, where it's like we have this fundamental question, and again, I've said it before, and I think it is this weird through line through all of Phase 4. I'm going to assume intentionally, because it's a thematic resonance across the entire thing, where it's this question of free will, where it's like, we had the same thing in Black Widow. where, we have this question of, overcoming brainwashing and overcoming what's been given to you and what's been forced upon you to become your own person, where the climax of that movie is, her breaking free of her father's, the father of the Black Widow program, breaking free of his influence. The finale, Shang-Chi was similar, except instead of it being brainwashing by a malevolent spy ring, it was his own father training him to be a weapon and overcoming that. There was, Eternals, the question of free will, over, programming and handling what it means to come from a god, and have everything lie, everything about you is a lie, basically. Loki was about, do you have free will in a world where the timeline is set in stone? And I think that, for Moon Knight to continue this question and continue this look at, we're looking at this, and I think it could just be, because it's not even the first time that Marvel's really done this, because again, I keep drawing comparisons to the Winter Soldier, because the Winter Soldier also has something similar, where, it's very similar, where the plan of Arthur Harrow is very much like Hydra's plan in the Winter Soldier. It is, they're going to, Hydra is not a god. Hydra is using algorithm to be like, okay, so this person's doing X, Y, and Z, therefore in the future we will know this. So it's a less perfect system than a god that can see the future and, and be like, oh, so I can see the past, present, and future. I'm omnipotent, and I can see all, but I know that, so I know that this person is going to do this here, and that is, it is better to take them off the board now. But the question is, what's the line for good versus evil? What is, and all of that? It is just interesting to me that this is something I keep going to. Maybe it's just an easy philosophical question to ask that's not too demanding on the viewer. Because of that could just be the case, where it's like, okay, well, we don't want to overtax the viewer too much and make them think too hard about this. So if it's just like, well, how much free will do you have? It's a pretty easy, layup question, especially when you put them into these black and white terms that Marvel's been doing, where it's not particularly deep. And I know I made it sound deeper than it is, but it's not a particularly deep look at what they're doing, at these, at what's going on. So yeah. So we'll wrap up for today, for this morning. This evening, I will be going to see The Northman, the latest movie from Robert Eggers, who has directed The Vivitch. Then there is, tomorrow, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which I don't have high expectations for, in the slightest, but it is a movie. It feels like a joke that went like one or two steps too far and had like $75 to $100 million invested in making sure that people saw the joke. It just doesn't. There's nothing about it that's particularly appealing to me. But Nick Cage is good for search engine optimization, so we will be covering that movie. So until then, have a great rest of your week.